Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. We just want to greet you and say welcome to DubTV, the virtual conference program. Today we have a special program. It's a academic program, and we have two very special guests. Professor Mohammed Hassen from the Oromo community, well-known researcher, historian. We'll talk about his bio and everything. Professor Mohammed Hassen, welcome to DUB TV.
Thank you.
As well, we have Professor Abdiwahab, Afro-Asian Institute. Abdiwahab, most of the Somalis, wherever they are, they know him very well. Welcome to the program, Professor Abdiwahab.
Thank you for having me.
As well, the two prominent DUB TV representative, Wazir Goulet, Mr. Goulet, and Tuat Nafu, who is the Amharic program director, is with us. Both of you jointly welcome. And I want to start with a quick overview of our Amharic program director, Atnafu, to give us, then we'll start the program. Atnafu, what's the current situation in Ethiopia, specifically the Amhara region, at this moment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Yassin, and the guests, Professor Mohammed Hassen and others too. I will be brief on the situation in Amhara now. As you guys know, Amhara region has been under state of emergency since June 2023 for the last 6 months. And actually, the invasion was done before the state of emergency, which was April 2023. So about now 10 months, the region is under a military rule. That means that they can go house to house and take whatever they want, detain, kill, rape women and children. That's what's happening for the last 10 months in the Amhara region. The pretext for the state of emergency and the invasion was, first, they said to demobilize the Amhara special forces, but the true intention was to disarm the whole Amhara community so that they will do the genocide against the Amhara people just to promote their hidden agenda. That was the real picture, and that's what they are doing now. Because the case of the Amhara Special Forces is already over. They disbanded them, and they started taking arms from everybody, including Fano, who was trying to protect their community. Now the fight is very intensified. Their primary aim was to complete their mission in 1 month, and at most in 2 months. But now imagine it's over 10 months since the military was already in the Amhara region. So they couldn't even complete within 6 months. The Amhara people and the Fano, the so-called Fano, who are the users trying to protect and resist the armed invasion of the Abiy-Bihi regime. And honestly, thousands of the military men and women were really vanished and killed by this war. And we never heard even one prominent Fano member to be captured or killed in this engagement. So the Abiy Ahmed's military is defeated in the engagement of Fano in any war. And now what's happening is they extended the state of emergency for another 4 months this week. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. But when they do that, before they do that, they already procured long-range airplanes, bombers, long-range drones, and part of their preparation is to have a naval military base in the Somaliland area, which ignited another front in the eastern region. And all this is the preparation to bombard and kill, rape, and demolish the economic entities of the Amhara people and Oromo people and everywhere this time. nobody is really spared from this regime. So now the resistance is very strong. 80% to 90% of the Amara land beyond the main road, asphalt roads, is already under the control of the people's resistance, what we call it FANO. The war is going on, but the killings of the civilians is very alarming at this time. This week, 3 days ago, just last week on Monday, they killed more than 100 innocent people in a small city, which is 35 miles away from the capital city of the region, Bahardar. The name is Marawi. They killed innocent people, of 100 people, including 6 years old child and 75 years old senior citizen. So our worry is, we know that the regime already lost the battle, but they are intensifying the killings of innocent people who are farmers and students and civilian residents. So this is where we are. The strange thing that we are witnessing now is the military is defecting already and joining the Pano movement. So I call upon the whole community, be it Oromo or the Somali brothers and sisters, to join this struggle. The Fano struggle is about freedom, justice, equality, and democracy. And this regime is against its own people, regardless of what ethnicity you are already. So nobody is spared from being killed. And in our history, more than millions of people already killed under the Abiy-Ahmed's regime, including the heavy casualty when there was a war between Tigray and the Abiy forces. So this rage is continuing in Amara region, in Oromia region, and who knows, it's coming to the Somali region to the east as well. So we all
So let's
are
hope not
in a
that.
very scarce situation.
Before we let you go, what's the position for Fano's MOU? What are they saying about the MOU signed by Somalia and Ethiopia?
But no, and I can tell you on behalf of the Amara people who are free and independent of the cadres of the Abiy regime are against this. Fano movement and the Amara people, they want to live with its neighbors and coexist peacefully. Yeah, we understand that Ethiopia, with 120 million people, may need access to the sea. We had that access through Djibouti as usual. And this thing now, what they call the access to the sea, is not, has nothing to do with the port or the economic situation of Ethiopia. It's about military preparation. It's about creating a naval base in that area. So we are against it, and we are against their move and illegal and undiplomatic MOU signed with our brothers Somaliland, and Ethiopia should have respected the sovereignty of the Somali Republic. And we don't want to create another front on that side. So we are against it. I can tell you, and Fano is against it.
Thank you very much, Ato Atnafu. We appreciate it. We want that perspective. And I want to right now to welcome everybody and Gulet to take over the program. Thank you, Ato Atnafu.
Thank you, guys. I have to leave you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's the essential reporting that we're getting from Dr. Atanafu gives us a perspective. We'll use that as background as we enter into our virtual conference. Once more, welcome everyone to our virtual conference. The theme or the title is the political effects on the Horn of Africa beyond, as we titled it, Abiy-Bihi MoU, which are the two leaders of Somaliland and Ethiopia. Once again, we are honored to have distinguished guests today. First, we have, please join me in welcoming Professor Mohammed Hassen Ali, eminent scholar and historian specializing in African history with a focus on Ethiopia. Professor Mohammed Hassen is an associate professor at the College of Arts and Sciences. He graduated from the University of London, England, and has dedicated his career studying African history. His teachings span many topics, including world civilizations since the 1500s. And it's interesting, the last few weeks we were discussing the history of the Oromo and the Somali. He's focused on Eastern Africa and the Horn of Africa, and the rise and fall of the apartheid system in South Africa. His research interests lie in history of the Oromo people in Ethiopia, and had made significant contributions to Ethiopian studies. He was one of the key negotiators as the OLA and government of Ethiopia were negotiating several months back. We're also privileged to have another esteemed guest today with us. Welcome, Professor Abdiwahab, Sheikh Abdisamad. Dr. Abdiwahab is the Executive Director in the Institute of Horn of Africa Strategic Studies, and he's a specialist in political science, conflict resolution, rural development. His work primarily focuses on socio-political dynamics of the Horn of Africa. In addition to his academic pursuits, Dr. Abdiwahab has shown remarkable resilience and courage. As we remember, he was abducted in Nairobi and held captive for 12 days, an event that shocked everyone in Nairobi who's known him. He also is heading the new Afro-Asia Institute for Strategic Studies. His insight and analysis and Dr. Mohammed Hassan's analysis will be very, very important for us in terms of understanding where we are today, where we are going under the cloud of the MOU. And during their presentations, I'm just going to go through the rules real quickly. Both gentlemen will be given 8 minutes to articulate their perspectives on the theme of today. Certainly, they do not have to limit what they're going to cover specifically on the theme if they want to go broad and give us a broader understanding. After the 8-minute presentation discussing the impact of the MOU, we will then go into, for each, so 1 and then 2, and then we'll go into question and answer session for each gentleman. At that point, we'll have many questions that were sent to us. Obviously, we'll have questions that come out of their presentations and any of the interactions that we get from the audience that are watching. So one more time, gentlemen, welcome to our virtual conference today. We're very honored to have you. I hope you can hear me. We're all in different countries, so I'm hoping we can hear each other.
Let's start with Professor Mohammed Hassen.
Very good. Professor Mohammed Hassen, welcome. Your 8 minutes starts when you start speaking.
Thank you. Ahmed Yasin, thank you for inviting me to this program. And glad it is nice meeting you, and thank you for your generous introduction, which was absolutely unnecessary, honestly. One sentence is enough for me. Let me first put 4 points very clearly for our just as a background to what we are going to discuss. First, let me start with the most obvious. The Somalis and the Oromos are closely related people. This is not what I said. This is what, as part of Cushitic language speaking families of people. In fact, the Somalis and the Oromos are the closest in that regard. I remember reading a long time ago when I was in graduate school in London, there was a famous expert on Somali studies, Andreaski, the Professor Andreaski, the late professor, who really said 40% of the words that are used both in Somali and Oromo are common. And I confirmed that during my first visit to Mogadishu in 1980. When I went there, I was a graduate student, and I went to attend the first Somali Congress of Somali Studies in Mogadishu. There I met a scholar, a graduate from Al-Hadar University who was teaching in Mogadishu, Sheikh Muhammad, the late Sheikh Muhammad Rashad. and he was working on Oromo Somali dictionary, and he exactly repeated the incredible similarity between the two. The point is really very clear. The neighbors, we share, our people share a lot in common in terms of exchange of goods, services, and so on, culture. They share common religion and so on. The point I'm trying to leave is really very simple. Remember, governments come and go, always come and go. People remain, especially during the time of crisis. People really must try to distinguish governments from the people. And I'll try to show you that in a minute or two. Let me first start with the government in Addis Ababa. The prime minister who was elected in 2018, the name is Abiy-Ahmed. He came to power through two events. One was the Cairo movement, the Oromo Youth movement that lasted almost for 4 years. And the second one was the conflict within the ruling EPRDF parties. The Oromo Youth movement inspired the conflict within the three major ruling parties of the ruling party, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the Amara Party, and the so-called Oromo Party. And by the beginning of 2018, behind the scene, the Amara leaders and the OPDO leaders really basically ganged up to remove the TPLF from power, and it was that brought Abiy Ahmed to power, actually. This man never participated in any Oromo issue before 2017. Just remember this point. Never, ever participated in any Oromo event before 2017. And he is a man with a limited knowledge, limited education. Education, of course, is very important. And he thinks he is the most knowledgeable person. And he is a professor, he is a scientist, he is X and Y and all kinds of things. And he was the first one who targeted the youth that really created instability within the ruling party itself, the Cairo movement. He described them as herds to be controlled or to be destroyed or to be imprisoned. Today, almost 100,000 Kairos, as I speak, are imprisoned in Ethiopia. You may not believe, in Oromia region. And also, without knowing, he also drove tens of thousands of the youths into Oromo Liberation Army that is now currently challenging him. And I focus on Abiy for one thing. Remember, he joined the military at the age of 14, and he spent most of his life through the military. All what he knows is really war, nothing else, killing, destroying. And this is a man who, in a meeting, and I heard from the person who participated in that meeting, who said we have to kill millions to remain on power. Just underline this, to kill millions to remain on power. And I listened to his talk on television where he ordered policemen and the soldiers to loot civilians. A leader urging soldiers and policemen to loot civilians. That is today what is happening because the government is not in a position. They are in a deep financial crisis. They can't pay. Basically, and militaries, they loot they loot from the civilians. This was the man who stated 3 years ago, Ethiopia will be one of the two superpowers by 2050. One of the least developed countries, the land in which 30 million human beings need assistance, He said this country will be one of the two superpowers on earth. Why do I repeat this? This is the man who really believes in propaganda, basically in propaganda, always confusing people from jumping from agenda to another agenda. And this was a man who established what is known as Prosperity Party, basically a gospel party. Even the name itself, prosperity, comes from prosperity gospel. The purpose is for destroying the existing federal system in the country. Remember, I grew up under unitary Ethiopia when I was in elementary, high school, Haile Selassie University. It was a unitary state of one language, one culture, one national identity, even one religion up to 1974 in that country. And this is a leader who promised to restore that Ethiopia, which he called a glorious Ethiopia. And this is a leader who invited Eritrea to invade Tigray with his own force. Basically, during the 2-year war in Tigray, 1,200,000 human beings have been killed in Tigray. Probably it will take another generation for Tigray really to recover from that tragedy. In other words, this is a government that really committed genocide in the region of Tigray, as it is happening now in several other areas. Some African leaders, I don't want to mention, I know for sure, I heard with my own ears, describe him as an unstable child. There are those who worked with him who describe Abiy as a pathological liar. And there is really good reason for that aspect. Let me come to my most important point. Definitely, Abiy is a very unreliable leader in the Horn of Africa, probably in Africa. Today he is your friend, tomorrow he will be against you. And we will see if the MOU understanding with Somaliland will really even last a long period besides the crisis it has created. I would like to make one point very, very clear to our audience, to all of you. Really, the Prosperity Party that now rules the country is, honestly, with genuine, with truth, I repeat, this is the enemy of the Oromo people, the enemy of other people of that country. It rules for itself. There is no, and it does not represent the Oromo people. The individuals within that party, some of them may speak Oromo language, but they are part of Prosperity Party. The party
Thank
that
you.
believes they have to kill millions to remain on power. I say this because since the creation of modern Ethiopia 140 years ago, no other government in that country, and I know history of that country, has committed so much has brutalized Oromo children, women, and the men as much as this Prosperity Party has done in the last 5 years, friends. Hundreds, probably hundreds of thousands of Oromo nationals have been killed. More than 1.5 million has been displaced. This is the report from IDPF. And 150,000 houses have been destroyed, burned to the ground with this military. Let me just give 2 examples of inhumanity, cruelty. I have studied history of that country, especially from the time of the creation of Ethiopian Empire by Menelik. I don't ever remember any time when human beings were burned to ashes with their houses. There were countless times that has happened in Oromia in the last 5 years. one thing which is still really gives me a nightmare is a mother of 7 who was 7 months pregnant was tortured, was actually turned to ash with all her 7 children. Just imagine what type of military burns a 7 months pregnant woman with all her children. And this is the Prosperity Party that uses, that really abuses. And the most important, what is most tragic, I have already said there are 100,000 Kairos in prison. The number of prisoners in Oromia are even much larger. The worst part, the government soldiers take prisoners who are under the custody of the government during the night. They execute them. I'm telling you 100% true. They cut off their head, hands, legs, and then scatter in the forest. The goal is to frighten the local population, basically. What type of a government does these kinds of inhuman activities? This
So
is
if we can, Dr. Mohammed Hassen, we're gonna save some for question and answer,
sure.
but that gives us a very good perspective on the broader leadership in terms of drive for the government of Ethiopia currently. What I will do is, because I would like to have Professor Abdiwahab. You will have equal time, so please. I'll try to maintain equality in terms of time. Certainly, the focus we have today was to talk about the impact of the MOU in the aftermath of MOU for the Horn of Africa, but obviously a focus on the leaders that signed the MOU and the leaders now that are navigating the fallout from the MOU is also important. So, Dr. Abdiwahab, please welcome.
Thank you so much. I think Professor Mohammed Hassan summarized everything. But let me say, Abiy, in fact, is a desperate leader. He's the most brutal leader in the recent history of Ethiopia. No question about that.
Yeah.
As we speak right now, 2 years of war against Eritrea cost more than 1 million people. Almost 600,000 people have been killed. If you add the massacre now takes place in Amhara region, it's almost approaching 1 million people have been killed since he came to power. Literally, Abiy, he's not controlling 70% of the country. 20 regions of Oromo, 18 of them controlled by the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army. It's only controlling three regions. Tigray is gone. Amhara, literally 75% of Amhara region is being controlled by Fano. So the guy is literally the mayor of Addis Ababa. So he's a very desperate leader. That's why he's going to divert the attention of the Ethiopian to somewhere else. Basically, he's a failure in terms of leadership. That's why he also signed an agreement with another failure, Musa Bihi. Musa Bihi, he said the same also, because 40% of the Somaliland is being controlled by the Khartoum state. Other state of also is under. In fact, there's a lot of opposition group is now forming that part of the world, specifically in our region. Within the Somaliland itself, the fact they're really debating about the issue of the Musa Bihi has done a blunder after blunder. That's why in 2022 he's supposed to conduct an election. He never done that. He's not the legitimate leader. So there's a two illegitimate leader sign an agreement. Basically, what will be the impact of this memorandum of understanding between the Abiy and Musa Bihi? This can easily undermine the safety and security of the region. It can easily undermine the stability of the entire Horn of Africa. For instance, if Somalia today, although Somalia is a weak state, we agree that, but despite that, there is a possibility of Somalia, Eritrea, and Djibouti forming a mutual defense against Ethiopia if the threats continue. Somalia can go as far to Egypt and have an agreement with them so that they can have some bases inside Somalia, which can easily undermine the stability of the whole region. In addition to that, Somalia also they can invite Turkey so that at least they can have a base in Somalia and defend the Somali territory. So basically, this memorandum of understanding a disaster and undermining the stability and safety of the entire Horn of Africa. Not only for that, if you look at the leadership of Dr. Abiy, in fact, Oromo are more victims than any other community in Ethiopia as we speak right now. Oromo is the biggest victim of this memorandum of understanding because he created a tension between Oromo and Somalis. This memorandum of understanding can easily ignite a tension between Oromo and Somalis. Despite the Oromo and Somalis, they are two brothers and sisters. 30% of the Oromo population are Somali origin. 30%. If you ask the Oromo themselves, 30% of Oromo population are Somali origin. So these people, they are brothers and sisters. So Abiy, in fact, undermined the coexistence of the Oromo and Somalis as well. That's what I'm saying. If God forbid, if this kind of provocation continue, which means that he can easily ignite a tension between Oromo society and Somali society, which can easily undermine the stability of the entire region. You must understand one thing, and Yasin. Oromo is the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia as we speak right now. Almost 50% population of Ethiopia. Follow the Amhara of 17%. Somali is the third largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. Then the Tigray is the fourth ethnic group in Ethiopia. All those ethnic groups exist in Ethiopia today are in the loggerhead. In fact, Abiy is undermining the stability of Ethiopia. In fact, Abiy is going to destroy Ethiopia, to say the truth, more than Somalis and anyone else. I have met Abiy twice. I told him, the last time I met him, I told him, why can't you initiate a peaceful and prosperous Horn of Africa, where the entire community they can have a business together? Why don't you do that? Rather than igniting, war after the war, tension after tension. Ethiopia became the source of tension and the source of tension in Horn of Africa. Just a few months ago, he's threatening Eritrea. He's going to have, access to Assa by force. And again, now he's going to have access on Lugaya by force. What does it mean, surely? What does it mean? The other issue is, which I'm going, in fact, to highlight, the external factors of the issue. And in fact, we have to address the elephant in the room. Unless we address that, I can tell you, we cannot discuss the source of tension if you don't address the elephant in the room. Who is the elephant in the room? Who is that? The UAE, the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
Abiy, literally, he became a lapdog of the UAE. And as we speak right now, the Arab states, particularly the Gulf states, they became the part and parcel of African problems.
Yeah.
What happened today in Sudan? This Hamiti group, those guys, Janjaweed, former Janjaweed, RSF.
Yeah.
Who is controlling? Who's funding them? The Arab states, but specifically UAE. The similar thing is going on in Chad again. So the entire Horn of Africa and Sahel and Red Sea regions are on fire. So the scholars, the intellectuals of the region must address the real issues of what you call who is behind the whole tension. What's the source of our tension? Why the society live together in peace and harmony? Who has undermined undermining the stability? And that's, unless we address those issues, we cannot solve our problems. Abiy, he became a source of conflict and tension in our region. Abiy is undermining the stability of the region. Abiy is destroying Ethiopia, and he's destroying it also, as well as if Ethiopia today is collapsed, definitely Somalia will collapse. Eritrea will collapse. you know, Kenya will collapse as well. For instance, if 10,000, 5 million Oromos cross over into Kenya, as you know, Moyale, Marsabit, Siyol, up to the Tana River, they speak what you call the Oromo language, the same language. How do you see the stability of Kenya, to say the truth? So literally, this guy, he's a warmonger. He's going to, undermine the stability. So unless the community in the Horn of Africa change the way of thinking, unless the intellectuals of the Horn of Africa come together and discuss the issue, how can we have a peaceful, prosperous region in the Horn of Africa? And I can tell you, this kind of what you call undermining the stability of the Horn of Africa will continue. Otherwise, in other words, we have also to address the issue of the Arab factor, the Gulf states Arab factor. We have to address. The sooner we address, the better. So those issues, in fact, are the source of the conflict of Horn of Africa. Unless we address it, amicably, I don't think so. The Horn of Africa will be far from solving our own problems and coming together as a society. Let me go back to the issue of Somaliland, so that I'm going to conclude the issue of the Somaliland. Somaliland now is a failed project. It's already failed because of Al Anod issue. SSC, they're controlling almost 40% of the land of the Somaliland, together with elderly state. Right now they want to take over the elderly state, so that the issue of the Somaliland is no longer exist. It's a dead project. It's a dead on arrival. So there is no way Abiy right now is going to discuss the Muse, the issue of the memorandum of understanding, the access to the Red Sea, unless the Muse himself address the issue, the internal issue. The other issue is this: the Somali government, that they are willing also to support those unionists, Somali unionists in northern part of the country, so that they can easily control, they can easily rule themselves, so that Somalis, right as we speak right now, there's a Somali nationalism just similar to 1960s, because the Somalis, it's just of one family, in fact, to say the truth. Just one family. If they have seen external, aggression, external, threat, they unite against the threat. So that's the nature of the Somalis. You must understand the history and the nature of the people you are dealing with. Somalis is only one tribe. They speak the same language. They have the same religion. They have the same physical appearance. They have the same geographical location. So if they feel it's been threatened by the external enemies, they'll be unite. The one now from Garissa to Jigjiga, from Jigjiga to Al-Sabih, now they are saying we have to come together and discuss the issue. The sooner we defend ourselves, the better, because they have seen the Somali identity is being under threat. That's exactly now they are coming together, and in fact they're organizing at least to confront the threat of Dr. Abiy Ahmed, who is willing to talk by force the Somali Sea. In Africa today, there is 16 countries in Africa who are landlocked. Abiy, if you want to make a business with Somalia, he can do that. He can make it a business. He's using Djibouti port. He can go and make a business with Berbera and the Bosaso and the Mogadishu and Kismayo. That is not a big issue. Making a business,
if we can, Dr. Abdiwahab, what we'll do is we'll come back to that. That's the economic question. We'll get to that in a minute. I wanted to see.
Let me conclude. Basically, Abiy is looking one issue, and that he will not succeed. I can guarantee you. Abiy want to have Abiy is going to access the sea by force, and have a naval base, one of the Somali ports, and that will not happen. In fact, if he's a genuine guy, he can negotiate what they call a business. Somalia has the longest coastal area in Africa. Somalia can even have almost more than 50 ports. If he can invest peacefully, he can invest and do a business rather than undermining the stability and security of the society in Horn of Africa.
No, well, let's start there because we only have for the hour. We've done 40 minutes. We have 20 minutes. We'll try to see if we can do short question, short answer. The first question will be an economic question to both of you. Um, we see in Ethiopia now, and has been said many different places, there's starvation, there is serious economic challenges, there's inflation, there's drought, there are the Ethiopian currency, the bir, has been taken on a lot of pressure in terms of valuation. Uh, and then the dynamic that you both mentioned, particularly Dr. Abdiwahab, of the Arab countries, maybe the UAE as mentioned. How does Ethiopia then pay for this port if it's unable to get aid to people, particularly in the north, that are dying by starvation? What is the plan, or can Ethiopia pay for it? And we'll do Dr. Mohammed Hassen and then Dr. Abdiwahab if we can limit that answer to about 2 to 3 minutes, please, so that we can have more questions. Dr. Mohammed, please.
Guled, thank you. I didn't say a word about the memorandum of understanding.
Sure.
In fact, the very moment when I heard it, I said to myself, and I shared it with my friends, this is a dagger aimed at dividing the Somali people. There is absolutely no doubt about that aspect. Uh, 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 um, Abiy, as Professor Abdulwahab said, so as the president of Federal Republic of Somalia said beautifully, through dialogue, through negotiation, Abiy will have not one or two or three, but five parties for lease, which will benefit everyone else. Remember, I said Abiy is always interested in drama. You may not believe how that memorandum of understanding was broadcast as breaking news on Ethiopian television. It said Ethiopia got a seaport. What Ethiopia got was an air, nothing else, basically a talk, but it was broadcast and always drama, basically. And the Somalis, I 100% believe, have the capacity of solving their internal problems through democratic mechanism. Remember, of all human governments that have been invented by human ingenuity, it is said the best one is the federal arrangement, because federal arrangement depends on self-rule as well as shared rule. It accommodates diversity. In fact, Kushatic speaking population like Somali, like Oromo, cannot really live except under the federal arrangement. Their culture is really based on that aspect. And our Somali brothers, especially those in leadership position, have to seriously consider the idea of federal arrangement, which will really bring all the Somalis. They are one people, as it has already been said, and it is a form of government. If the people in Somaliland or other areas will be able to administer themselves, and then they will share governing Somalia together with their other brothers and sisters. That much is very clear. I know 100% for sure Ethiopia has been paying for access to using port of Berbera for nearly a decade, as it has been doing for a century with Djibouti. And there is no earthly reason why Ethiopia cannot negotiate with the Somali federal government in terms of mutual agreement that benefits Somalia without breaking the Somalis into permanently dividing the Somalis, and that is really non-starter. That is my point. And remember, the late Professor Masfin Waldemariam, probably most of you, probably Ahmed Yassin will remember, he wrote a book.
Little child.
Following the Ethio-Somali War. The title of the book is Somalia, the Problem Child of Africa. Why do I raise this? Today, Abiy Ahmed is the problem child of the Horn of Africa. He really creates crisis almost everywhere. And as Professor Wahab said rightly, he is the agent of UAE. Basically, it is the UAE that finances. Recently, there were a discussion, actually, there were documents. UAE wants to control the resources from Ethiopia all the way to Malawi. Just imagine this. From Ethiopia, which includes Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, all the way to Malawi. There is a document that deals with that aspect. I have not get hold of that document. I'll try to get. If I get hold of it, I'll definitely share with you. Abiy is implementing. Remember, Ethiopia doesn't have any foreign currency at this moment. Abiy Ahmed is building a palace, his own palace, with $10 billion. Where is that money coming from? From UAE. Basically, UAE has already established its colony as a bridgehead in Ethiopia for the purpose of expanding all the way to Malawi. And the people should really realize this. And he
Thank
is
you.
definitely the problem child of that area. Other questions I'll be able to answer, my friend.
Abdiwahab.
Yes,
Yassine,
Dr. Abdiwahab, the same question, if you don't mind. The economic situation in Ethiopia, as we can see, is very, very challenging. The currency has a lot of headway. There's starvation. Aid has not been able to be sent in to people who need it in the north. But Ethiopia now is saying we're going to build a modern port in Lughaya in Somaliland. The question is, and you alluded to with respect to UAE, how does Ethiopia pay for it, and also pay for the $10 billion palace that Professor Mohammed Hassen just said? How is Ethiopia able to build a modern port that can house both commercial needs as well as military needs?
Yassine, Ethiopia
Good.
has no capacity to build, has no
Good.
capacity to build what do you call, Ethiopia has no capacity to build a boat at this moment. And the issue is, who is behind this drama? The drama is by UAE. That's simple as that. They want to have, to make conflict or to create a tension between the society in Horn of Africa. Simple as that. UAE, just like, if I describe it in layman's language, it's kind of, somebody who go to a bus station, create a, what you call a problem, then they start pickpocketing. In fact, it kind of the pickpocketing, because when they create a tension, problems in Africa, then they can easily, exploit the resources in Africa. For instance, as we speak right now, they are mining the gold. They are mining in Sudan. They are mining in Niger. They are mining even in Chad. So that's how they thrive. That's how they loot African resources. So the issue is, Abiy has no capacity to build a port in Lughaya as we speak right now. Berbera Port, initially, UAE obtained 51% total shares of the port, 30% northwest region of Somalia administrative. Then 19%, it was allocated to the Ethiopia, and they failed to pay. 90%, they failed to pay. What about now, Lughaya? Who is behind the whole drama, as the professor put it rightly? So Abiy has no capacity to build a port, to build a road network, and the railway, station, so on and so forth. This is the creation. This is UAE behind the whole thing. They want and staple and and undermine the consistency of the society in Horn of Africa. Simple as that. So that they can easily exploit, they can easily loot the resources in Africa, left, right, and center. Simple as that. This is a classical example in DRC Congo. DRC Congo, as you speak right now, 186 Western company are mining. Each company he has his own militia who can fight for them. 106 militias are inside the DRC Congo as we speak right now. They are going to destroy the nations. They are going to destroy the people so that they can easily loot our resources. Simple as that. Simple as that. The UAE is behind the whole thing. The sooner the African elites, African scholars, the
Yeah.
African, intellectuals come together and address the issue, the better. Unless
Thank
we
you.
do, unless we face our problems, this problem will have
I continue.
a repercussions, long-term repercussions, the stability of the region.
That's where I need to come in. The spillover effect of this MOU. Now I want a two-part question about just the United Arab Emirates. They already gave today $2 billion, more than $2 billion, to stabilize the Ethiopian economy today. So that itself you can add to the equation. But having said that, the spillover effect, we've seen that what's happening right now. The Oromos who are living in Somalia, whether they are living in Hargeisa, Berbera, whether they live in Djibouti, whether they live in Puntland, the Oromos that who are workers, who are day laborers, are become the victims of these issues, for this agreement, and it looks like that's one side. How will this spillover affect the Oromo Somali relationship, which we, Professor Mohammed and you guys talk about it, but on the ground, and how can we fix it? That's number one. Number two, Professor Mohammed, we talked about Abiy numerous times, but we did not talk about the president of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh, and the way he's acting and his government responding, the lack of Minister of Foreign Affairs, the subtle diplomats that he's doing it, how you are somebody that who cares about the deal with African issues a lot. The speech that he made in Italy, how he was inviting, saying that come back to your place in Somalia. So take the two different parts. Number one, the Oromo Somalia effect for Professor Mohammed Hassen. Number two, the actions of the president of Somalia and how he's responding. Professor Mohammed first.
Thank you, Ahmed Yassin. May I take a second, 10 seconds? Remember who started the Libyan crisis? Libya to be dismembered? Who was behind the division of Sudan now? The conflict. So Sudan is going to be Northern Sudan is going to be two separate countries. Who will be victimized? It will be the Sudanese population. This may be the fate of all our people. It is the money. It is the money from UAE that is really financing all these crises. Unbelievable. In fact, they even created a militia. You remember the Russian Wagner militia?
Mm-hmm.
Along that line, they created a militia. There are leaders of that militia. They haven't yet announced it. It will come tomorrow. There are so many unemployed population everywhere. They could easily promise, lot of money, and the purpose is to totally destabilize the region for the purpose of, creating militias here and there. Then, as Professor Abdiwahab said, the purpose is really for plundering the resources of the people in the area. Governments that cannot feed its own people, As I speak now, 20 million people need daily assistance in Ethiopia. 20 million people need daily assistance. Ethiopia will never be able to do anything about it. The drama about the seaport, if the Somali people are not willing, no matter how much money UAE invested, remember it crosses 800 kilometers. This will be a project that will be disrupted at every level. There is no thinking behind this idea. It is just this wild surprise, impressing people. Abiy always plays this drama. It is connected with that drama. To come to the most important issue you raised, the conflict now, the Oromo refugees who are in Somalia have nothing to do with this government. They fled from this government to save their own lives. They are there. They are providing service there. And it is emotional moment. And it depends on the leadership, Somali leadership, to simply calm the people. These are the victims. We cannot victimize them twice. And remember, this government, Abiy's government, a time will come when it will be part of the dustbin of history. It will be part of history. It will pass. Take it, because he is a human being. Human beings are here today, tomorrow they are not there. But people are there, and relation between the two communities that have so much in common, that have a better future actually, for cooperation, for all other things. I think they have to protect. I honestly believe wise leadership should protect the victims who are in Somalia itself. We never know what will happen tomorrow in that area. There will be crashes everywhere. And it is the wise head actually who always really calms, who shows reason, and by killing people who provide service there, probably
Okay.
people may think they will have emotional satisfaction for a second, but that really will not serve anything. And we have to think about this very, very carefully. It is the responsibility of those in possession of
We need to
responsibility,
separate.
power. And Ahmed Yassin, I couldn't say a word about the president of Somalia,
Yeah.
federal Somalia, because I don't know much. But what I like most about him is he seems to understand about economics, and especially when he said through negotiation, Ethiopia will have not one, but 3, 4, 5, even more if they have the capacity for that, if there is willingness. And Ethiopia is controlled from behind the scene. Have no doubt about that aspect. Basically, it is
Fair
UAE
enough.
money that is running the whole thing. We
Okay.
just heard from you about $2 billion stabilizing. I couldn't imagine that aspect.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So that's good. Professor Mohammed Abdiwahab, I have to give you the same time. Please, what without we want to conceptualize what's the Somali government, if they do in the right response. We know that the Somalis are unified. Please go ahead. I don't want to take too much time of yours.
You know, let me tell you one thing. Yeah? The issue is not, Ethiopia, they want to access the sea for commercial purpose. The issue here is Ethiopia, they are looking for ownership. They want a naval base in Somalia. This is the bone of contention. This is why the Somalis are against it. The issue is how he responds to the Somali head of state, to the crisis. To say the truth, it's below the bar, below the expectation. First, when the territorial integrity and political unity of Somalia is being threatened, you have several ways to respond. The first one, you have to recall your ambassador in Ethiopia, which he did perfectly. There is also a non-ATMIS troops inside the Somalia. He can easily, in fact, tell them and in fact suspend the, mutual defense pact between Somalis and Ethiopia in regard against the Al-Shabaab for the time being. Thirdly, if the aggression of Dr. Abiy, continue, then Somalia has no option to suspend the Ethiopian airline, so that at least they were not allowed the Somali airspace to come in. The third issue is, suspension of the agreement between the two countries in regard with the defense issues. All those areas on the table, they have to discuss. But what the current head of state did is, at least he's going to maneuver the diplomatic shuttle, whereby he's going to at least please the Western world, so that at least they can say, we have to respect the territorial integrity, the political independence of Somalia, and so on and so forth. But today, there is no international law to say the fact. If the international law is to be respected, the classical example is today what you call what's going on in Gaza. What's going on in Gaza today? It's a classical example. What's going on in Nagorno-Karabakh between the Azerbaijan and Armenia? All those issues are classical example. Selling a portion of the land at a cheaper rate to the Ethiopia, no Somali person can tolerate that. No Somali person can accept that. That's a fact.
So today, what you're saying is the Somali
put your shoes in. Put your shoes in. Let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia will not accept if I say this. How will you see the reaction of the Ethiopia if Somali government say today they want to at least have a portion of Amhara region or Oromo region, or also to some extent in Tigray region? How the Ethiopia today to react? The same thing.
So Somalia did not reciprocate diplomatically what they're supposed to do. They have a punitive damage that they can use, but they are not using it. That's what you're saying.
Let me tell you, most of the Somali, intellectuals, Somali academics, Somali politicians, they believe that the issue is not the business. The issue is ownership. There is ownership. They're going to own, a port or a sea in the Red Sea, and that will not accept. No one cannot accept that.
Good. The issue is. Let me ask you one more question. Then I'll let you finish. The Security Council. The Somalis tried to request the Security Council. The France refused. As soon as the France government rotation was over, the Security Council started hearing this issue, and now the news that we are hearing it is they are sending to the African Union and IGAD. What will the effect be in negotiation in IGAD and African Union? And is that what the Somali government was looking for?
Ahmed, let me tell you one thing. Yeah, France is a part of the problem. In fact, they are training almost. They promised to train more than 30,000, Marines, Ethiopian Marines. So in France is an interest party. He can't be a honest broker. That's one issue. Secondly, the issue of IGAD. IGAD is a new colonial tool. Has nothing to do with African issues. To say the fact, IGAD is being controlled by Ethiopia. IGAD is being controlled by Dr. Abiy himself. So what I expect IGAD, in fact, the other issue is the African Union. They, in fact, they nominate, envoy to Somalia, Olusegun Obasanjo. Obasanjo, we know the Obasanjo. Obasanjo is a collaborator. Obasanjo is publicly, supporting the succession of Somaliland. How can be Obasanjo can be a neutral person to say the fact?
Okay.
You know, the whole thing is a political gimmick. Whole thing is a political gimmick. They are undermining our intelligence. African Union, ECOWAS, IGAT, SADC are all neo-colonial tools. Who finance them? Who give the finance? So the issue is a fishy. That is not the real solution to the problem. The solution of the problem is, let us discuss the issue frankly. If the people don't frank to each other, they will never suffer any problems. And that's exactly what's going on. The Europe, they are now going into third world countries because Europe is being built by the blood of Africans, the resource of Africans. Now they become a bankrupt, so they're going to recolonize Africa. So they're going to create a tension. They're going to create the problems among African societies, and that's exactly what's going on. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just a political gimmick.
Thank you. Professor Mohammed Hassen, we are at the end of the program. We are always agitators. We worked together, you and I, for a while in Atlanta and the US, and we did conference together, participated numerous conferences that you organized, as well as myself. What's the solution if we cannot trust the UN and UN is pushing it back? If Professor Abdiwahab is saying right now the France is puppet, the IGAT is another entity that we cannot trust, the Nigerian envoy we cannot trust, African Union is not. What is the solution? What do we do? And then I'll give to Gule the rest of the conversation.
Oh, that's a very, very good question. In 1964, at Cairo conference during the African Union, it was Ethiopia that presented the idea of maintaining the territorial integrity of countries in Africa. Now it is that country which is violating the territorial integrity of Somalia, basically, taking advantage of probably the unfortunate situation in Somaliland. Just imagine establishing a naval base there, who is to say a few years from now, if the project succeeds, they will not take over Somaliland and then take over the whole of Somalia. It is madness. Accepting this kind of things is really a time bomb, absolutely a time bomb that will bring crisis, unimaginable crisis for the Somali population, for the people in Ethiopia itself. You know, when the whole issue first started, I remember the African Union itself, EU itself, the United States, they all affirmed the sovereignty of Somalia. Because if Somaliland breaks away, you know, Somaliland, if it is in the interest of the Somali people, I, as the supporter or the unity of the Somali people.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
It is in the interest of the Somali people if they really solve through discussion. All the problems are always created by human beings. Solutions are always brought through human beings, and solutions through democratic discussion of spirit of give and take, which is really based on the idea of federal arrangement, basically federal arrangement in which the others, the people of northern Somalia, Somaliland will feel they are part of the larger Somali community. If they really dwell on that, there is no reason why problems will not be solved, can be solved, but it needs sober mind. It needs individuals with skill, especially lawyers who have training in this area, basically hammering how to reconstitute Somalia, the Somali state, as it once existed. You may not believe this, if I may throw in, you know, there was a famous sheikh who now passed away, when Somalia and Oromo Sheikh, when Somalia became independent in 1960, he wrote a moving poem. And he said, you sleeping giant, you understand what he meant. He can't openly say that in those days. You have to follow the example of Somalia. You have to follow the example of Somalia. And the point I'm trying to say is that independent Somalia inspired so many people, including the Oromo, really, in that part of the world. And I hope one day Somalia will reconstitute itself and plays its dynamic role in the Horn of Africa, in Eastern Africa.
Thank you.
Let me
Go
add a
ahead,
few things here.
and then I'll give Gulet
Just
to
a
do
few things.
reflection.
One few things. You know, in Africa today, there is a 33 active, separatist movement exist in Africa. 5 of them, they're inside of Ethiopia as we speak right now. If Ethiopia disregard the territorial integrity and political independence of Somalia and recognize Somaliland as a state, one thing I can tell you for free, they open a Pandora box. Pandora box. That's what I can tell you. That's why, right in Pan-Africanism, we are advocating for one country, one continent, we cannot allow Africa to be divided into deeper and deeper. We'll not allow that. That is against the Pan-Africanism. That's why in 1960s, Ethiopia, they're the one who proposed at the summit of African Union in Cairo 1964, as his professor said, let the boundaries left by colonial remain the way it is. The way it is. Today, they are in breach of that protocol. So the issue is Dr. Abiy Ahmed ready to open a Pandora box so that there's a 5 active separatist movement inside Ethiopia as we speak right now. So I'm saying basically is to have a peace and stability in Horn of Africa, each country must respect the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political unity of other country. That's the only thing we can have a peace, we can have a business, we can have a commerce among ourselves.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if we pay you, what kind of advice you're going to give us for free. But that's beautiful. Gulet, we have done this thing numerous times. Well, I remember the first conference, one of the conferences that we did with Professor Mohammed Hassen. He was talking about, we were discussing about the Ogaden issue, and we were just saying the victims of the people and all that. Next thing we know, we didn't even know what's going on in Oromia. And now the professor is saying that what happened in the past is nothing compared to what's going on.
Yeah.
So your reflection, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes.
That was 20 years ago, Professor Mohammed Hassen, if you remember. That was, I think it was almost 20 years ago. It was 2005.
Yes.
Yeah, that's imagine we're using the same language as we did then. You know, the one thing that occurred to me as I was listening to both Professor Abdiwahab and Professor Mohammed Hassen. There's an example of regional cooperation that works all over the place. And one example that came to me as we were discussing this was, the Nordic countries, or 4 or 5 countries, have insulated themselves in a way from the rest of the world. Even their cabinet ministers meet on a regular basis. They share land, they share resources, they have stabilized in terms of their political relations, but they have unified in terms of their educational. So every year, one of those countries becomes the happiest country on the planet.
Yeah.
Population-wise, the Horn of Africa is more than double, I believe, what's in the Nordic countries. But their economic output, with far less natural resources, is drastically more than than the Horn of Africa. And then you have those countries actually sending in their aid agencies, which is really, a sad indication of lack of cooperation. Ethiopia is a breadbasket, can be the breadbasket of East Africa. It has the Nile, it has farmland, but then again, we hear people in the northern part of Ethiopia that are starving. Somalia can be the breadbasket of East Africa with the Juba Valley and the Shabelle River area. But then again, we see a lot of desperation. So a point that both gentlemen spoke to was the leadership capacity, the vision of the leaders, the direction that these countries and these populations must go versus where they're going today. And I think that is the thing that I would take away from, which is that these people have been, subhanAllah, Allah the Almighty has made these people neighbors, has made these people intermix for thousands of years. They're going to be neighbors forever. We just have an issue in terms of leadership, in terms of capacity of governance, in terms of how can we negotiate and work together. So in that sense, both gentlemen have hit the nail right on the head. The point that is missing still is, which is the question that's still unanswered, if this port or this MOU is logically unsound, that it doesn't pass muster, that it cannot be implemented, then why cause, and there are options of 5 other ports that Ethiopia can use right now, why cause the level of instability regionally? Why cause the potential pushback into Ethiopia? And why? So if the answer is simply desperations, well, then if you're desperate, why create a more difficult situation? So I think these are still the unanswered questions as we try to sort of get in the mind of these leaders. And I certainly thank the 2 academics, and I'm hopeful to have them back again, where we can maybe point some critical questions and get some answers.
Thank you. I'll give Professor Abdiwahab 2 minutes, and then I'll give Professor Mohammed Hassen 2 minutes of closing remarks.
Basically, as I told you earlier, if this memorandum of understanding, Abiy, in fact, if he's push his agenda, accessing the sea by force, putting, a naval base in Lukhaya, that will create a huge impact, the stability and safety and security of the entire region. Let me give an example. As I told you earlier, this is being pushed by the UAE. But if the West become the West, Somalia has an option on the table. One of the options is they also to invite Egypt to have another base inside Somalia. If there is that, if that happen, God forbid, that also will create a new tension, will generate another conflict, because the Egyptians are determined to destroy the dam, the Renaissance Dam. If they did that, then the entire region will be on flames. As we speak right now, Abiy has no in good time with Egypt, has no in good time with Sudan, has no in good time with Eritrea, has no good time in Somalia, has no good time in Djibouti as well. So literally, he's an isolated person. He became an isolated leader. So literally, Abiy cannot lead at this moment in Ethiopia. If the ruling of Abiy continue, then I have no doubt in my mind that this country will collapse. An entire region will collapse as well. So that's what I'm saying. The port is a trigger, just a trigger. It's a trigger.
Yeah.
Can open a Pandora box, can invite another proxy forces to the region. That's what I'm saying. The sooner he abandoned the plan, the better.
Thank you. Professor Mohammed Hassen.
I am not fully convinced that he still believes in it as the day they signed that memorandum of understanding. His attention span is always limited. He jumps from issue to issue. I really suspect Ethiopia doesn't have the finance to build a seaport, which means if it is done with UA money. Basically, it is foreign money. And it is part of the plan I mentioned earlier, from Ethiopia all the way to Malawi. This is nothing but a new version of colonialism for plundering the resources, especially material resources like gold and other commodities from the area. This memorandum of understanding will really not create any peace, harmony, economic development. That part is a joke. It will not work, as I say. It will simply intensify really human misery in the area. There is no doubt about this in my mind. And if conflict breaks over this, it will engulf the entire Horn of Africa. As already mentioned, there are conflicts everywhere. Abiy does not have only few leaders that he calls my brothers. I don't know how he become their brothers, at least his supporters. And internally, he is involved with war with the Oromo for 5 years, more than 5 years. With Tigray, we know what happened in Tigray. In the Amhara region, as we heard, they are really devastating the region itself. What is all this drive destroying the infrastructure of the country almost everywhere and destroying the future? And this is a very poor country. And the only industry that exists in Ethiopia, I'm not exaggerating, is military, war industry, basically. And it is financed by foreign governments. This is not a way for progress for any country. War always destroys. We know this from experience. Always war destroys, conflict destroys. It is peace and harmony, and then common understanding, common economic interests that really creates better relation among people and brings peace and stability in the region. The road picked by Abiy-Ahmed is a very dangerous one. It may not be good even for him. He thinks through his brutal military means he can crush every movement. That is not really possible, basically. In other words, the game he has started probably may end actually the empire created by Emperor Menelik. Especially Abiy wants to restore the unitary Ethiopian state. That means the benefit the Somali people enjoyed so far in terms of using their language to develop their culture, their history, for their own administration, the Afar, the Oromo, everyone. Trust me, as Professor Abdiwahab said, Abiy is, by trying to destroy that federal system, he is opening up the worst Pandora box that will really threaten the very future of Ethiopia itself. Whenever a country is under a wrong-headed leadership, that country generally destroys itself. I hope that will not be the fate of the people of Ethiopia. And who knows what the future brings for all the people, the Somali people, the Oromo, other people of Ethiopia. And
thank you very much
for this opportunity, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this illuminating discussion. We will continue this dialogue, and we have a program in Somali right now in about a few minutes discussing about the same issue but different perspective. Again, both of you, thank you, and I wish you guys can join us in future discussions. As usual, we hope stability in the Horn of Africa and pray for that. Thank you.
Thank you.